Once again, we are faced with the accusation by the United States, this time particularly Donald Trump, that somehow China is a currency manipulator and that they manipulate their currency for their own favor. Imagine that. A country, any country, making alterations to its currency in order to facilitate its operation. Now, obviously, this should come as absolutely no surprise, but the problem is that there's a lot of misinformation about how this whole process works. Now, the United States has accused, even going back into the Obama administration, of China manipulating its currency in order to make it artificially low. Well, that's true. It does make itself artificially low. Now, the reason they do this is to be able to export en masse to the United States. China purchases U.S. debt. The purchase of U.S. debt increases the value of the U.S. dollar because it's a floating currency, because it's not pegged to anything. It's allowed to go by sheer market forces. So China buys U.S. debt in order to raise the value of the U.S. dollar so that they can afford to export to the United States and make more money as a result. And this has been primarily the way the Chinese economy has functioned in the last 2, maybe 3 decades or so. So this is really not anything new. Now, they do this so that finished goods can make their way into the United States more cheaply, and people of lower incomes can purchase more luxury items or light items that they wouldn't have been able to purchase previously. That's why we see a rise in so many consumer goods in the United States in the past 3 decades or so, because they have become cheaper to where people of lower incomes are now able to afford them. They're acting like this is some kind of great manipulation and this is hurting the US economy, etc. Well, you see, it's kind of not. There is a very strange relationship between the United States and China, which actually relies upon there being cheap imports from China. The US benefits from that, and China benefits from it as well. This idea that China is a currency manipulator is ridiculous on 2 levels. One, American citizens benefit from the way the currencies work. And number 2, the U.S. allows the value of its currency to float freely and be made subject to market forces. Well, if you don't want that, then why don't you just peg it to something or give it a fixed value? I mean, already it has a hegemonic position within the world economy. That is the world's reserve currency. It's the world's currency used in trading. So by no means can we just simply see the U.S. economy or the U.S. dollar as somehow a victim in the global economy. I mean, this is just absolutely untrue. What this is a common thing used to justify hostilities against China. I mean, this was done under Obama as well. You accuse China of doing something wrong so you can justify putting sanctions or tariffs or whatever it is that you particularly want to do to China at a particular time. So it just seems like this is coming up once again under Trump to justify putting what he has said previously, tariffs on another $500 billion worth of Chinese goods that are generally directed towards, the United States. And this stems into something much larger. This is about trying to stimulate production at home, which has its problems altogether. There's a matter of why manufacturing was moved to China. It's not something capitalists wanted to do because they wanted to make more money. It was something they had to do. Now, my audience is at least generally familiar with the concept of the falling rate of profit, and one of the move to put manufacturing inside China was in order to deal with that falling rate. Simply moving it back won't do anything to challenge that problem. So in the short term it might work, but in the long term, dealing with that rate or tendency of the rate of profit to fall will end up becoming a problem once again. It's just one of those situations where there is a situation in which both countries need things to be a certain way in order for them to both profit off of it, and they do both benefit from it. But the United States is trying to make it look like it's this bad thing in order to justify further hostilities against China. But then again, that is par for the course for what we know from Donald Trump.